Welcome. I'm Jan Triplett. I'm the host of the program today, which is called Inspiring Entrepreneurs. It's part of the Boss Talk series. I am the CEO of the Business Success Center in Austin, Texas, and my guest today is Tom Ortman from Concurrent Design, the founder and CEO, and we're going to be talking about how he and his partner built Concurrent Design and how it's easy to build a business when you have the kinds of answers that you need to think of in terms of building a business one prototype at a time. So welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you so much, Jan. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad that you're with us, and we've had a lot of people who've been interested in how you build a business where you're just doing one thing at a time. So I look forward to having you give us some of your insights in terms of a 20-plus-year-old company that you all built from scratch, just like you build your prototypes. So before we get started, I just want to clarify that the goal of the Boss Talks webinar series, which stands for Business Ownership Success Series, is to give you ideas that you can use in your business and that you can share with others. What we do at the Business Success Center is we make businesses more efficient and profitable. And that means really looking at some of the things that Tom and I are going to be talking about. And we start the pyramid at the top rather than at the bottom because that's where we think it belongs. And Tom's going to be talking about that. And we're going to be looking at some of his clients and how he's hung on to those clients over the years, how he's grown with them and things of that sort. We also think that the next step that you have to have is the right model and solution, which Tom and his partner, Tony Ornalis, came up with. We're going to be talking about lifestyle and goals. They have to match. This is something that everybody at Concurrent Design made work. And so that's one of the reasons that they are able to survive any downturn that comes their way. And after all of these years, I figure, Tom, that you and I, because we've been in business a little bit longer than you, have been through somewhere between 6 and 8 downturns. So obviously you're making it work. It's really looking at the right competition and the right competitive advantage, having the best positioning, looking at profitable pricing to make sure that what you have allows you to add value to that. And that means that the last step is to make sure that you have the infrastructure growth that you need to get your investment back out, whatever way is the best way for you. So let's talk to Tom. This is his contact information. He is, as I said, the president and CEO and founder of Concurrent Designs. And a few years ago, when he was a wee lad, he was part of a program that my partner and I did at the Austin Community College called Street MBA. He was one of our graduates. And he went on with Tony to build this wonderful business and really to focus on one of my favorite things, which is strategic partnering. So welcome, Tom, and glad that you could be with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Jan. And I'd like to start by commenting that, yes, I was a graduate of the Street MBA program. This was something that we were very fortunate to discover, and with you and your partner Dan Diener presenting this class at the local community college, Tony and I got a huge lesson in the basics of what are we doing when we're running a business, because I suspect, like many people who start a business, we had absolutely no idea what we were doing as soon as we stepped out of our little comfort zone, which was engineering, design, and build. So all of the other facets of the company, we had to go through an awful lot of learning, a lot of lessons, and you gave us a huge start. So I really want to pass on my appreciation to you and Dan for all of that help in the beginning and again throughout the years. So it actually was pretty important, and I would say would be one of, if there are some lessons that I can convey back to your audience, one of those lessons would be to get help, to ask questions, to get help early. Working with you at the Business Success Center, would be one way to get some of that help. There are others. There's the alternative board, the CEO network, Capital Factory does a wonderful job, the technology incubator, Texas Entrepreneurs Network. All of these things are avenues where young entrepreneurs can get some assistance. And it seems reasonable to me from a 21-year hindsight that how could I possibly know everything about running a business when I'd never run one before? And to joke that I didn't know the difference in an accounts receivable from an accounts payable, I didn't honestly know a debit from a credit, and I wasn't too sure what an invoice was. It sounds a little bit silly, but the reality is that you don't know an awful lot of stuff when you start a business if you haven't done one before. So please get help. And that help should include getting a really good CPA who's properly aligned to you, your business, your interests, and he has experience in that area. And the same thing with an attorney. That's been a very big benefit to us. We've been very stable. We got lucky, and we found both a really good CPA and a good attorney.
Well, those issues of asking questions early, getting the help that you need are certainly very important. It also, Tom, has to do with kind of how you saw your life going forward. Would you take just a minute to talk about, when you started to think about setting up a business, what was it that you wanted to do with your life that was different than if you had continued to work for somebody?
So I suppose like a lot of entrepreneurs, our beginning was sort of thrust upon us. For a long time, the company that Tony and I worked for before this one, I remember thinking to myself, I had the audacity in this billion-dollar company to think, gosh, I think I could do this better. And a lot of that thought had to do with the sales and marketing end of the business and just not maintaining a consistent workflow. I can say from hindsight now that that's a lot more difficult than it may appear to the young engineer sort of looking up and out into the world. But we were helped along. We were laid off from our last job, and we had been thinking about doing something on our own. But now we were given the opportunity due to no choice of our own. So we decided to go on ahead and to pursue this. And in the middle of a downturn and with a pregnant wife, I had the idea that I was going to bootstrap a business, and of course really didn't understand what we were getting into. But as you noted, 21 years and 6 or 7 downturns later, we're still here, doing well, have grown a lot, learned a tremendous amount, and pretty happy to be where we are now, and looking forward to some of these next steps that we have planned. So I'd actually like to talk about that a little bit. The idea of, if you are an entrepreneur looking out at the world thinking, hey, I want to go do my own thing, okay, great, wonderful. There may be a couple of questions to ask. What do you want to do with your life? What would you do if you hit the jackpot, the lottery? And so I think about those kinds of things. And when we started our business, it was not with a lot of thought to the answer to those two questions. It was much more of a, need a job, thought about starting a company, let's go do that. It was actually probably, 5 or 10 years into the business, I really started to ask those questions about what do I want to do with my life. And after some soul searching on that, I realized that what I wanted to do with my life was to make a difference and to be able to contribute to the world in a good and beneficial way. And there's a lot of people that think that and feel that, and I've had the pleasure to meet many people of like mind. And the epiphany for me was when I realized that we could actually do that work by doing what it was that we already do well, and that is engineering, designing, building, prototyping, but to turn our focus specifically into areas that are, very hopefully apparently beneficial to the world. So clean energy, clean technology, solar energy, wind energy, medical technology. These were areas where we could apply our skills, our knowledge, our experience, and we can contribute to society in a beneficial way. So you have that philanthropic sensibility each day that you come to work, because you are adding back to the world, and it's kind of a nice feeling. And as I've asked myself, what would I do if I hit the lottery? I would do exactly what we do now, only better and more. And that's kind of a nice place to be, just from a personal philosophy standpoint.
It certainly is. And I have up a slide talking about the company profile. You have certainly done so many projects, and we're going to look at those in a minute. And you've built a business with a staff of 30. That's above the magic 15, where all kinds of laws and regulations kick in. And so I would imagine that sometimes you find yourself doing more business stuff and not related to what you love to do, which is engineering. And I put up a partial client list, and it's simply amazing to look at all of the different kinds of businesses that you've worked with over the years. And I know from talking to you that there have been some real highlights, kind of unusual people, and maybe you talk a little bit about, because finding the right customer is so important to any kind of entrepreneur, whether they're just starting or at the pre-start stage or they've been out there a while, is to remember how important selecting the right customer is. So would you talk about that for a minute, and about sales?
Sure. So the idea of the right customer, when we were a young company, any customer was a good customer. You're usually sort of, really going out of your way to develop new customer relationships, and anybody who has an interest might be a good customer. But when you have a little bit of the advantage of some critical mass, a little bit more time and runway and cash in the bank, you start to ask the question, who are good customers for us? And what does our customer mix look like now? What customers work out really well? What don't work out well? How can we go out of our way to select the clients that we want to work with? And so we've gone through that exercise, and we have developed our own internal ranking system. We classify client prospects in a platinum, gold, silver, bronze, tin, and lead hierarchy. Platinum clients are world-class companies that we want to be associated with, and we want our name, our projects, our clients, at world-class caliber. So the Intels of the world, Dells, AMDs, 3Ms, IBM's world-class clients, we purposefully and specifically have a list that we target. We go out of our way to meet them, to nurture those relationships, to build those relationships, and essentially it's where there is no limit. Whatever that platinum client wants, then we're going to go out of our way to make sure that we satisfy that, so we can build that relationship. And this is a strategic marketing initiative on our part. It is a time-consuming initiative, and we full well realize that this is going to take years and years and years to get all of these clients, but that's okay. We certainly pay attention to the tactical, because we need to keep everything going day to day, but there is absolutely a concerted effort toward those strategic, high-value, high-profile, world-class clientele that we want to be able to list as our clients.
And I think that, Tom, one of the things that you feel is really important, as do I, and I love to hear you talk about platinum clients, because that's where I feel that people make a mistake, is they do, all of us start with who's alive and breathing and might be able to give us a few dollars.
Yeah.
Sometimes we end up with radioactive waste instead of platinum. So I think that your point about making sure that you're spending enough time there as one of the pieces is really important. I put up a slide about the things that you do, and I want to go and show some of the examples of some of the projects you've done, because I want you to talk then about the people that make this possible. So I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint and go to your website so that we can look at the what we do and where we do it. And I'm going to ask you to kind of talk, if you would, about how this relates to the people that you brought on and how you made those staffing decisions. So I'm just going to kind of scroll down a little bit so that more people can see more of the interesting projects that you've done over the years.
Sure. So this slide off our website is what we call where, what we do and where we do it. The reason that we put this slide onto our website was because people would frequently comment to me when I would go through our portfolio or discuss our business or the areas we focus. The comment would be, "Oh my gosh, you guys are like all over the place," which I didn't think was helpful to our marketing, our brand, and leveraging a core competency. So the what where was intended to be able to show in one slide the vertical sectors that we focus on, so electronics, and this is really a chronological path here. The electronics in general is where we started, moved into the semiconductor industry, downscale into nanotechnology, upscale again into solar energy, expanded out into clean tech, and we expanded out into medical. So there are a lot of electronics, semiconductor applications in medical, but a lot of what we do has a very strong core in mechanical engineering. So my background is in mechanical engineering, as is my partner Tony's. So we're leveraging our core skill set. Over the years, we have added to that and expanded out to all of the adjacent engineering disciplines. So mechanical, electromechanical, opto-electromechanical, thermal, structural, electrical, electronic, moving into some software and firmware areas that starts to get a little bit beyond our core skills. And so what we have done is we have built essentially a core team, regular full-time employees who have skills in those core areas, mechanical, electromechanical, electrical, and extended out into some of the more specialized maybe is not quite right. It's specialized for us. It's not specialized for everyone. But when we have a client who needs a skill set which is not core to us, we can almost certainly get it within our sort of next tier of service providers. So we've developed partnering relationships, and we're able to address pretty much anything from start to finish for a client who is seeking assistance in a project area where we have core skills. We can almost certainly extend out to address everything that they need. So as far as the core staff, many of these folks we have worked with for well over 20 years. Many of them came with us from the prior career job before Concurrent Design, and many of them were actually our clients. And when our clients had established relationships with us and we knew that they were really good at what they did, and they became available due to some change in their work situation, we were very happy to take them on board. So we actually have very, very deep, rich resources, but a lot of that resource is based upon many years, decades, routinely. And whether they were a client or an employee, there's a very good, strong relationship there, so we can take on all manner of projects successfully.
And you've done something unusual. Certainly all of us who've lived through the downturns hear stories about people being laid off, but you took a different point of view in terms of your staff and in terms of keeping the business going. Could you talk a little bit about how you faced those challenges?
I think what you're talking about is our compensation arrangement. Is that what you're getting at, Jen?
I was thinking of that, but also the fact that even when things were tough, you didn't let people off.
Yes, yes. Okay, so this all goes into the same discussion. So, being an engineering consulting firm, when we began the company, we first of all, we didn't have any money when we began the company, so hiring people full-time and having salaried people when you may or may not have work for them was a really big challenge and question. So we addressed that initially with two thoughts in mind. One thought was that we're going to pay our employees on an hourly basis. So everybody here pretty much is paid on an hourly basis, and that includes me and Tony. And we thought that was good and fair for a couple of reasons. In many salaried positions where engineers commonly would find themselves, they might be getting a salary for a 40-hour job, but they might be working a 50 or 60-hour week. And we thought, well, if that's going to happen, then those employees should be paid for that. So they get paid hourly, and if they work 40 hours a week, they get paid 40. If they work 60, they get paid for 60. If they work 35, they get paid for 35. And that seems to have worked out pretty well for these last couple of decades. Everybody seems to be pretty content with that. So there's a high level of correlation to your contributions and your work as far as your compensation. We also have two other employee-centric considerations. One is a very liberal workday. So the workday is 9 to 5 with a plus or minus 2-hour window on that. So some guys like to come in really early at 6 a.m. Some guys like to come in later at 10, and everybody likes to avoid the traffic. So that's helpful. We provide laptops.
That's really important. And I want to stop just for a minute because there's a brand new survey out about employee happiness, and you're hitting on a really important issue. So you talked a little bit about, keeping the cash under control. Now you're talking about how to manage the staff. All of those are really critical to keeping the business going the way that you've built it. And I'm so glad that you talked about that. I'd like to have you take just a minute to talk about the weirdest project that you think you had. And we're looking at all the wonderful pictures, but there's a weird one that's my very favorite. And I don't know if you know which one that is, but I'm hoping you do, that we can talk about.
Gosh.
Which was the theater.
Favorite of mine. Oh, are you talking about Lincoln Center?
I am.
Oh, okay. So, I was born in New York City, and Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall, those were, sort of these magnificent, exalted places sitting high up on the hill. And I moved to Texas and worked here and started this company. And then one day we got a call from the Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts in New York City. And my first thought was, what could we possibly do for you guys? Well, they had an electronics thermal challenge. Some of their monitors, this was their marquee display right on Columbus Avenue. There was 5 large flat screen monitors that made their marquee display, and they spent a lot of money to set it up, and it just wasn't working. Every morning the sun would come up, shine on the monitors, and they would thermal overload and shut down. So they asked if we could help. We said we thought we could. We sent our thermal engineer up there. He assessed it. We said, yeah, we think we can fix this for you. So we did all the thermal engineering, and then we did all of the electromechanical packaging design to implement the new thermal solution. And then we had all the parts built, shipped them up to New York. They had them installed, and a couple days later, we got a call from our client there. And he said, hey, I'm out on the sidewalk. It's 113 degrees on the sidewalk, and the monitors look great. So, all right, thumbs up. That was a huge win. We were delighted to have Lincoln Center as a client. And then the client said, hey, would you like to do another project? And we did. Would you like to do another project? And we did. Would you like to do another project? And so Lincoln Center has become a very nice client for us, even though in my wildest crazy dreams I never would have imagined we'd even have anything to do with them. So that was,
and that kind of, Tom, goes back to our point about competitive advantage, is that you have been able to think like a kayak rather than like the Titanic, to be able to shift gears and go in directions that you couldn't envision but the potential clients could. And you just talked about having the parts built, which I think is a key component of making a business successful, which is to buy things and not have to do them all yourself. So would you comment about the things, the services and other things that you have bought over the years and how that helped you keep your business more profitable and more efficient?
Sure. So the kayak Titanic analogy is very apt. We have absolutely been forced to, not through any sheer brilliance of strategy, been forced to be very flexible and nimble. So I mentioned earlier about getting really good help with CPAs and attorneys. That also extends out to other things that are not core, perhaps payroll, perhaps human resources. But in our business, very much it extends out to the fabrication of the many and diverse things that you can see on that what, where slide. And so we have our own fabrication shop, but it's intended as a prototype shop, not a production shop. So we'll go out and have parts produced all over the country because there's all kinds of interesting and challenging creations we're tasked with. We'll bring those parts in, we'll do all of the debug here, and we'll do the testing here, and then deliver a finished prototype to the client. So the idea of having those resources internal is just not feasible, and so we're constantly going back to the question of we need to be working in the areas that we are the best in the world, and we are comfortable now with that kind of language and that statement. We are probably the best in the world at some of the core skill set areas that we work in, and we're pretty comfortable and proud of that.
And I think you should be. If you we're about out of time. If you had one piece of advice for businesses that are trying to not just start, but really to get to a higher level of profitability and efficiency, is there anything as an owner that you would recommend that they do?
I think you said one thing, Jan. Gosh, I'm not sure. There's a whole bunch of things.
How
Sales.
about three?
Three. Cash is king.
Okay.
Sales, 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 and never, never, never quit.
And I think that those are really important. And I think I like the last one the best because there is certainly a temptation when you have a business to quit and go back and take a job. And obviously, in 21 years, you didn't do that. Were there ever times that you thought about it?
Yes, there certainly were. It's a hard thing to run a small business, and yet there are rewards, and the whole idea of never quitting. There is a certain magic that comes along with time. The more time you have, and people, think of concurrent design, they think of me or Tony. There is magic that comes along with that because there's a stability and people start to count on it, and we have clients that'll come back from 5 different companies where they've worked. They've come back to us as that one grounding point for them to get work done that they need done. And so it does actually get easier in that regard as you move on in time.
And the getting the easier also means that you have to really have control over all parts of the business. Certainly your clients come back because you have pricing that is at the right value. And the key that I think that you and Tony both emphasize is sort of not being content, of always pushing forward. When I look at this slide with all the different industries you've worked in, we talked about all the different kinds of products and things that you've done, how you have approached really unusual problems that somebody else would have said, well, we're not the right person, is you looked at it from a critical stance and said, we can do it. And I think not quitting and we can do it, that you really at Concurrent Design are a can-do company. And so I want to congratulate you and wish you the best in the next 20 years. Do you know where you want to be 20 years from now?
It's something I think about quite a bit. My birthday is coming up here in a couple days, and gives you time to do some considering. I have asked myself the question many times. I actually expect to be working, but I want to be working in work that is meaningful and important to me, my children, my very soon to be born grandchild, and I'm content that the idea of retirement kind of drives me crazy. I don't know what I would do, and so I want to do what I'm doing, maybe just a little bit slower though, and maybe smell the roses a little bit more.
And I think that that's a good place to end. I want to thank you, Tom Ortman from Concurrent Design, for being with us today to talk about your inspiring journey, because I think there are a lot of things that you talked about here today that will be helpful to others as they walk on their way to get to the top of this mountain like this flag shows. And I thank you so much for sharing some of those interesting experiences with us. I hope that people will join us next month when we talk to another inspiring entrepreneur. But in the meantime, please go and check out Concurrent Design, concurrentdesign.com. And maybe you have a stump the band problem, but I think that you'd have a hard time. So thank you again, Tom, and I'm going to say goodbye.
Well, thank you so much, Jan. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.